What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 26 of the Everyday Sens podcast. I'm Jack Richardson, joined by Brennan Parks. Brennan, not much going on. Let's be real here. It's a lot of fluff stuff for the Sens, and we expected this. It's the end of July here. No signings to talk about, but there's still players out there, so maybe at some point this summer they'll come out. But how you doing on this Friday, July 21st?
Doing good, yeah, and I've been waiting for this Tarasenko news personally. I'm still on aboard that train, but yeah, so far it seems like there's not even rumors flying around. I don't know if the Carlson trade is holding things up in the market or what, but for now, yeah, I'm kind of just taking a step back because there's just nothing going on. We're gonna keep producing content, obviously, keep making stuff, but it's not going to be, quite as exciting until training camp starts rolling around, or maybe if they sign somebody later this summer. So we do have some stuff to hit on today, though. I think it'll be another good episode. Again, thank you to everybody for subscribing. I think we're up to we're on the better half of close to 900. So the 1,000 goal is coming quick, and yeah, I think the support's been awesome. That episode with Ian Mendez last on Monday, that really went off, and people loved it. We got a ton of great comments. So yeah, we appreciate everybody watching, and then we'll dive into stuff today here.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly the best endorsement that I just started with there, but you're right. Yeah, we've got we're well on our way to 1,000. Our goal is to hit 1,000 by training camp. I think we kind of adjusted that on the fly, and yeah, we're feeling good. There is obviously still Sens stuff to talk about. There is a pro amateur golf tournament that Claude Giroux, Josh Norris, and Thomas Chabot all played in Ottawa over this past week. Claude Giroux actually played in the Open, and I'm not sure. I think he did well, but it's obviously just I think it's a semi-pro event. I'm not really sure how it works. I'm a big golf guy, but I still don't know how all that works. But it looked like a fun time. We had reporters following them around, so we'll get into all that stuff in a little bit. But first, we're going to talk about something we talked about on episode 24, which was a week ago, right? Over a week ago, that the Sens parted ways with assistant general manager Trent Mann. It was made official this past week or a couple days ago. And it's weird. We know it's weird. We said this when it was originally reported. It's even weirder the way they confirmed it. And I think it all but confirms that it was a non-amicable split up. I'm sure you might be pulling up that press release. You know what I tried to do, actually? I'll admit right now. The tweet character limit on Twitter, because we don't have Twitter Blue, so we can't just post as many characters as we want. I tried to copy paste the press release and tweet it to see how much room there was, and it was about 94 characters over the limit. So they basically sent out a tweet as a press release to part ways with their assistant general manager, who's been here since 2016. It was weird, a very strange. There it is. That's all we need. There's the quote. For those listening, sorry, we just threw up the quote from Pierre Dorion in the Sens press release. Quote, "We're thankful for Trent's contributions to the Senators and wish him the best going forward," end quote. That's it. For one of your longest tenured employees, the guy who I've said, and I know you said too, is quite responsible for how, I don't want to say success, but the trajectory of this rebuild. So what were your thoughts? I don't know. I know we've already gone over Trent Mann in general and the Mann brothers and all that whole situation, but just what are your thoughts on the way this kind of came out, and like how it was delayed after the report and this weird press release and strangely small quote?
It's just a lot of turmoil again. Like it's just silly stuff to me. I mean, people say kind of bush league is one way to put it, but I mean, when I saw this, I kind of tweeted out like, yeah, I'm just focused on the on ice product at this point, because I mean, you look at the quote and you look at it, I think it was like 8 days after the initial rumors sort of came out, and it just seems like from everything we've heard, this was just a mess, and it still is a mess behind the scenes. Obviously, Chris Stevenson had the report saying Trent Mann was banned from working at the Canadian Tire Center, and there was some validity behind that, and like it's just such a big mess. So I don't even know. Like, my thoughts are that I am tired of the off-ice ridiculousness, and that I just want to focus on the on-ice, success and building a championship team. A lot of people thought Trent Mann would actually be a candidate for the next GM role, like before this whole thing with his brother came out. Obviously now it's just such a wash, and so many. It's weird because Pierre, Trent Mann was hired 1 year ago. He was promoted into that role, right, as AGM, and they said so many good things about him, and then Pierre just lit him up and said, he's done such an amazing job as the chief amateur scout, and he's done so much for us. Drafting's been great, and then a year later he's fired, and it's literally a one-liner that Pierre releases about it, and it's just so, like, I don't know if I'd call it unprofessional, but just weird in the way they're handling it, and it's disappointing to see because obviously we've got new ownership coming in. And I'm excited to kind of see what Michael Andlauer decides to do, because obviously this was just kind of another blunder, is the way I'd put it. And I think the delay of the sale kind of messed with his potential to replace people, but I would expect a lot of turnover over the next year, especially if the on-ice product is lacking in literally any way.
Yeah, I really do think that it wasn't really a secret, right? I think regardless of who it was probably going to bring in their own people at some point, but with this now, it's just a very strange. It's weird. It's weird, and that's what we can know, right? I think that everyone can see that, and this quote just enhances that. It's a weird thing to do, even if it wasn't. You know what? I think it's kind of petty, if anything. And I know we don't know what happened behind the scenes. It could have been bad, and it's hard to speculate on stuff like that when you don't know anything. But it almost feels like kicking a guy when he's down. Like, this is literally just a copy paste quote. You can take Trent's name out and put it with anything like that. That they do it for the players. They do it for a player they trade. For Tom Pyatt, when Tom Pyatt retired, he's on my mind because obviously Guy Boucher is a coach in Toronto now, and Tom Pyatt's name comes up whenever Guy Boucher is mentioned. So I'm just mentioning him, like, when they make a trade for a 5th round pick at the deadline for a guy who played 25 games for them, we're thankful for Tom's contributions to the Senators and wish him the best going forward. It's not really the way you would send off your next counterpart, the direct subordinate for you or to you for the last 7 years, that you've been the boss. So it's weird. It's weird. I don't like it. I don't need to keep talking about my problems with Pierre Dorion. This honestly just hammers it home. It's the epitome of why I think there needs to be a change. Like, on ice stuff, you can argue. I've actually been in his corner more than not about trades and signings and everything. I think he's actually done a fine job this summer too. Not as many fireworks, obviously, as last summer, but I've been in his corner for a lot of hockey stuff, the scouting, the drafting, all of that. It's just the managing of the people that I think he has a problem with. And this just, I don't know. I don't think it can be debated. It's pretty obvious. And that's the unprofessionalism that's kind of carrying over, I think, from this Melnyk, era. And he was there during it. And yeah, there was probably a lot of validity to Melnyk having his hands all over everything. Pierre couldn't do much, had to get rid of people when he didn't want to, whatever. But that can't be an excuse anymore. So this is absolutely on him. This whole man situation that's happened over the last year or the last 7 months or whatever, it's him. And we'll see how it unfolds. I don't really know. We don't know anything else. So it's just, but the writing seems to be on the wall, right? Like you said, that there's going to be significant change in the front office.
Well, that's just it. And again, like, I know Pierre obviously had to deal with Melnyk and his shenanigans behind the scenes as well, but like you said, that's no excuse. And frankly, the fact that we're still dealing with that type of thing, even though Melnyk's not here, it's disappointing. That's the only way I can really put it, is that it's disappointing because we are in a new era. Like, new era has kind of been the little slogan here. It's been Mike Andlauer taking over and we've got everything new, but yet, like, we're still dealing with the same random nonsense. Like, it's just, I just didn't expect to see this summer, something like this. I mean, you've got new ownership coming in and we're still dealing with it. It's very bizarre. Obviously, this does stem back to Trent Mann too, who was let go after reported or rumored to have shared information with the team, like personal team scouting information with other teams, some crazy thing like that. So yeah, there seems to be a lot going on behind the scenes still. I guess we can leave it at that, because really at the end of the day, it's just disappointing, and hopefully there's no one else that's going to be outed from the organization and then have this like massive, ridiculous drama surrounding it. Because Twitter, when this happened, was literally just talking about how brutal the organization was for like 2 full days, which sucks to see, because at this point, listen, I love making fun of the organization back in their rebuilding days just as much as anyone else. It was kind of like we took fun in our own like sadness surrounding how bad they were for a few years and how much of a mess everything was. But at this point in 2023, like, I'm done with that. Now I want to actually take pride in the organization and have them take pride in themselves. And the current regime, it just seems like things keep happening. It's like things just keep coming up that are not professional, that are Bush League, the rumors, and like lots of people like Brent Wallace, I know, and there were a few people kind of tweeting like, oh, there's so much behind the scenes here too, and there's so much more that's going to come out when Pierre's gone. and it's like, oh, God, like I'm just terrified at this point. I mean, it to me, and I've said this, and I don't want to hate on the current guys because they're still there, but I am very much ready for like complete turnover. And obviously, I think that Michael Andlauer is definitely considering that too. But it will be interesting, like we've talked about, if Ottawa does have good success on the ice this year, do you still let them go or do you let their contracts run out? We'll see. Like either way, I'm prepared for turnover just because of this off ice nonsense. I think we need to get a few true professionals who have proven themselves into the building.
Yeah, if there's a silver lining to all of it, it's definitely that there are brighter days ahead. And, new management, new ownership, it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be bumps in the road. I think if you ask any team in the league, there are flaws with every ownership group. It's you can't be perfect. That's just society. It's the world. But the standard of professionalism for all the employees, not just the players, is important, right? So that's why we're kind of talking about all this. So yeah, they part ways with him officially after 8 days after it was reported, bounced back and forth with the website. Whatever, it's behind us. Hopefully, the Mann brothers and Trent Mann included, I'm sure they'll find their footing somewhere in the NHL at some point in the future. So let's move on to some other Sens stuff. Just it's off ice, on ice talk, we'll call it, right? We mentioned that golf tournament that happened over this past week in Ottawa, and the Sens players were pretty publicly there, right? There was a little video the Sens posted of Norris and Chabot and Giroux. I personally, I was a little surprised to see Josh Norris there, not because of injury stuff, which we'll get into, but more just, he doesn't live here. So I think it was a situation where he was invited. I'm sure they asked other players too, but what did you make of, I don't know, just seeing kind of content like that? It's kind of nice to see the guys in the middle of the offseason.
It is, yeah, and I mean, I'm not following every single thing that the team posts at this point. Like I don't know, but regardless, it's awesome to see content. Like it's July 21st today. There's been nothing happening for like 2 full weeks since that DeBrincat trade, and we're still seeing the guys getting together. And like you said, that's a good point about Norris because he's from Michigan, obviously. And I don't know if he's staying here or if he's just coming back for this and got invited. But yeah, it was with Giroux and Chabot. Giroux, from everything I've gathered, and I don't follow golf super closely, but he seems to be this like extremely good golf player who's actually like on the verge of being some sort of pro, or he is a pro. I don't know. There's all sorts of different tournaments, but I know he was taking part in something last year too that came up that he was in some sort of actual tournament. So yeah, I mean, regardless, I think it's awesome to see the 3 players and Claude too speaking to the media. I think that was awesome. Like he talked about Alex DeBrincat. We can touch on that quote. I have it up here actually, so I'll say. He was asked about Alex DeBrincat wanting to leave Ottawa, and this was at the golf tournament, and he said, in French, I believe, "We kind of saw it coming. It was his decision, and we all enjoyed playing with Alex. He didn't want to be here. He didn't see himself here for the next 8 years, so that's the business side of hockey, which isn't really fun, but it is what it is. Now we're going to move on." And to me, that just sounds like, yeah, you got the little quote up. To me, it just sounds like captain. That's a captain mentality, right? That's like, and obviously Giroux's the assistant captain here, but he's been a captain for like almost his entire career. That's somebody who comes out and he knows how to talk to the media. He knows how to, like, he's not just giving them a blank statement that's just whatever. It's just an obvious, we're ready to move on. He's adding to that. He's actually adding some grit to that and some value. Like, we would have liked him to stay and he didn't want to, but our group is close knit. Like, that's kind of how I'm reading it. It's like, if he doesn't want to be here, he doesn't want to be here. But he also didn't mention like the hometown thing and say, oh yeah, it's awesome. He can go home to his hometown. No, he didn't say that. Claude's a competitor and he would have loved to keep Alex because Alex is a good player. But the way that kind of comes across, if you read between the lines, it's not bitter, but it's like, we love the guys we've got in the room right now, and Alex didn't want to be here, so he's not here. We're going to forget about him. We're just going to pummel him every time we play Detroit, and that's about it. Like, we're not going to keep thinking about him. So I love that quote, and yeah, it's awesome to see the content in mid-July because that's something we weren't getting for a little while there during the rebuild.
Yeah, I think it's great because, you get the best possible answer, right? It's a standard run of the mill, just typical hockey guy answer, but also he gives some good quotes, right? We saw it coming and he didn't want to be here. Hearing that from Claude Giroux means way more to me than hearing it from reports or from the general manager, right? Like if it's a player saying it, you know that during this whole process, the guys are talking to him for sure. Or at least, when DeBrincat knew he was going to get traded, he throws something in their team group chat, just being, right. Yeah, yeah, and if he says we kind of saw it coming, that means during the year too, right? And that's a big deal. I don't want to say that it derailed their season or whatever. And I know that there were people who had the philosophy that if they brought him back on a 1 year knowing he was going to leave, it would mess with the team chemistry. I don't know if I necessarily believe in that philosophy, but you can make the argument though, and especially with this quote, right? We saw it coming, that he didn't want to be here. That's big, and that's not nothing for Claude Giroux to say. And it just it sucks, but he's right. I think all fans should kind of feel the same way in that, yeah, it's okay. It's the business side and he's allowed to do that, but I don't have to be happy about it, but I also don't have to be sad about it. We can hate DeBrincat for it, but also respect his decision. There's nothing wrong with that. And, you know, I mean, we'll see what they do with the space and the roster spot or whatever, but the Sens made a decent trade with that. And also today, actually, just before we started recording, Donovan Sabrango and his Belleville Senators gear looks great. So that's fun to see. Like they made a decent trade out of it. And I think it'll end up benefiting them in the short term and long term, to be honest. So yeah, it was nice to see Giroux say that. And like you said, very captain-like. They've got obviously they've got Brady Tkachuk and they've got Claude Giroux, two awesome leaders for the forward group anyway. And we'll just move on. And when they play Detroit, what they do actually early in the year and then again in Sweden. So 2 early games. I know last year, actually, it took until December, I think, to play the Red Wings. Like it took a while. And yeah, here we go. We got Donovan Sabrango. So there we go. I'm going to take that "he didn't want to be here" quote off there because I know Sabrango wants to be here, right? So it's great. It's great to see that. I think when you take a guy like Claude Giroux, who's from here, take a guy like Jacob Chickern, who's from here, Sabrango's from the area, it can get a little, I don't know, maybe some people get annoyed with the whole hometown kid narrative, right? And that could just be Cody Ceci fatigue, right? He was supposed to be this hometown stud, and it didn't end up working out here for Ceci, but it's important for a small market like this. It's important. It gets the fan base rejuvenated. Even Detroit, they were talking about how, Dylan Larkin's from Michigan and DeBrincat's now from Michigan too. And it's important for the Red Wings. And that's an Original Six team. That's one of the biggest hockey markets in the league. And they still see the importance of bringing in hometown guys. So I love that, that it's Giroux saying it. It's not just the fact that he's that player. He's one of the best guys on the team. It's that he's from here and he wanted to come here. So hearing it from him means more than, a Josh Norris, let's say, just as an example, right? It carries more weight when the Claude father speaks.
Well, I'm still in awe that we even got Giroux, to be honest with you. That was so, like, acquiring DeBrincat almost lessened the impact of acquiring Giroux because you got 2, like, top 6 forwards. But I remember, I think I've said this before, I made a jersey swap for Claude Giroux, like, in March or something, and he signed in July, obviously. And I made a jersey swap, and I was like, could the Sens really get Claude Giroux? And it blew up a bit, but in reality, I was making that, and I was spending the time doing it, and I was thinking to myself, this is never going to happen. It's just good content. And then they actually went out and got him, which was like, it was one of those things that it just proved, again, that they're serious and that, Claude can actually show players that this is somewhere that, and obviously he's from the area, but this is somewhere that, they're going to be a competitive team. And I think players look at having a guy like Claude Giroux on the roster and they know, like, yeah, this team's for real. Like, they're serious. Claude Giroux is not going to let them, mess around and be a terrible team forever. He's going to be, like, he's a competitor. He knows how to like get more energy out of everyone around him, right? So I still can't believe we got Claude. Such a good communicator, so good, like English and French. He's so good. He drops the best quotes. Opposite to Pierre Dorion, he drops like the most impactful, deep quotes that just like blow you away, but have a ton of meaning and are also generic. It's really weird how he manages to find that in between. But every time he speaks to the media, I watch it because it's just like, he's going to give you something good without giving you too much, but without giving you too little. So Claude is an excellent communicator. I think he's got a definite career after his hockey career. I think whether it's in coaching, whether it's in like as an analyst, whether it's something else, he's going to be in something because he is just, his knowledge for the game is unbelievable. Every time you hear him talk, he's just sharing some ridiculously good knowledge. So and it comes across on the ice. That's why he's still so good at 35 years old or whatever he is, because his IQ, right? He doesn't even need to be the best skater, the best shooter. He doesn't need to be anything because he knows, like, he can read the play as if he's got some sort of like magic glasses on. It's ridiculous. So anyway, praising Claude because just he's so impactful, complete leader on the team. I would have been happy if Brady wasn't here, slapping a C on his jersey, right, and calling him the captain. So Claude, big signing, and we should all kind of be happy with that too. Because I mean, heck, like acquiring DeBrincat and Giroux obviously was over the top awesome, but even just signing Giroux last summer would have been a complete win for Ottawa. So, yeah, Claude, you made me feel better about DeBrincat as well, and we love you for it. So, yeah, I'm good on that point.
Yeah, and another thing with Giroux, we kind of did it with Chikrin, right? A couple episodes ago where we had a it was an impromptu Jacob Chikrin appreciation episode. Let's turn this one into an impromptu Claude Giroux appreciation episode because yeah, I completely agree. I think the DeBrincat trade happened first last summer. I was so hyped about that. That was my big like, play. And not to say I wasn't excited about Giroux, but I was more excited about DeBrincat, just the age and the fit on the team. They needed a goal scorer or whatever. But even all season, I think I underappreciated for a majority of the year. And I don't want to say all Sens fans did, but Giroux had a very under the radar season. And at even strength where this team struggled, I don't think Stützle and Tkachuk are that good at even strength if they don't play with Giroux for majority of the season, right? And yeah, you could say the same for Giroux, but he was on the second power play unit and still produced well on the power play. He was on he was an a plus player this year, I believe, or maybe just in the minus.
One of 4 positive goal differentials of 5v5.
Yeah, and his line mates weren't. So it just shows like his importance, right? And I think listen, the age is obviously concerning always, right? You get concerned, I mean, that it could just drop off because it happens to a lot of players in the league. But the fact that he just had one of his best career seasons at the age of 34, 35, I think the Joe Pavelski comparison is perfect, right? Pavelski's still a top player in the league at that age. And I think Giroux is too. And it's really exciting. It's awesome that they still have him. Adding another piece, we can talk about all that all we want, but he's a weapon up there. And he brings the on ice gif, right? That helps the team, but the off ice stuff too. And we'll transition here into some Josh Norris talk. But when they were golfing, I think they posted a little video. Norris was mic'd up, but I don't know if another video is going to come out because in the video, Norris mentions no one's talking to me. And I think as you're on a golf course, maybe it's just there's not much to pull from that, but I think there's a little part in there. And I think someone pointed it out on Twitter in their replies and everything that there's a moment where Norris hits a ball or something. And then I think Giroux goes back to him on the tee and says, I need you to be sharper. Right. So, and then I tweeted too, like he hit his tee shot and whatever, wasn't even smiling. Everyone's clapping. So it's a great shot. No smile, whatever. He's just a gamer. He is an absolute gamer in the middle of July. Doesn't matter what he's playing. And that's been the book on him forever, right? It's been that he's a gamer. He hates to lose, which, everyone loves to win, but it's different if you hate to lose. And I think Giroux is the guy who hates to lose. And he's bringing it out in Tim Stützle and Brady Tkachuk. Like it's a perfect storm of a veteran coming in with still a lot of talent, ushering in the young people and getting them to be their best. And I'm excited to see him with hopefully a full season of Josh Norris, which we will get into right now. Let's get into Josh Norris. So another quote or not quote maybe, but a report that came out from this tournament, Le Droit, excuse my French accent there, but we were transcribing kind of some stuff they were saying in French and maybe a little bit lost in translation, but eventually we got to the bottom of it the other day. It sounds like Josh Norris is not going to be cleared for training camp. It doesn't mean that he won't be 100%, but he is not cleared to play hockey at the moment. And I think that just means he can't take contact, right? I think that's what I'm interpreting because I think he has been skating for the last month. So does this concern you at all? Because we're about 5.5 months post-surgery. It's a 6-month recovery tops, I think. I don't know if, obviously we just know about this because he was at the golf tournament, but is it at all concerning to you that it's kind of taking this amount of time?
Well, yeah. Now, with the quote, though, if I'm remembering right, didn't they say he'll be ready for the season, but he won't be taking part in exhibition games is kind of the expectation? I think that's what they said, was that he won't play in the preseason or anything, but that he will be ready for the season, which is weird. Yeah, I don't know if that's just like I'd like to know if it's more of a precautionary thing just because you don't want to risk anything in the preseason, or if it's like, yeah, we're actually still concerned that he could get hurt again. Because if they are concerned that he could get hurt in the preseason, I mean, there's going to be concern that he can get hurt in the regular season too. Like, that's not that far apart. It does put a little bit of fear into me just because we've talked about it. Like, they're extremely thin if Josh Norris gets hurt. Even if they sign another player, it's going to be tough if you lose Norris for the whole season again. Like, he's just too important of a player. And with DeBrincat gone now, you need somebody to replace his goals, right? Like, you need to, and Kubalik will help with that too, but Norris is going to be your premium goal scorer now. And you can't rely on DeBrincat for that. So, and the power play is a big thing too there, where you've got him as a shooter now, where DeBrincat was. So, it does put a bit of fear into me, because if Norris gets hurt again and even misses half the season, that's a monumental loss for the team. Especially because he's signed. I mean, we're paying him, $8 million a year here for 8 years, right? So, it's not the type of guy you want to see get hurt every single year. I'm praying he stays healthy for at least like 60, 65 games. But yeah, this is certainly a little bit concerning, and hopefully it's just precautionary, but I don't know why he wouldn't take part in at least a couple exhibition games to kind of get him back in the swing of things. I mean, he hasn't played for months and months now. It's got to be approaching like 8 months at that time, 9, 10 months. So yeah, it's a little concerning. What do you think on it? Is it just precautionary, or is this something we should be worried about?
I think it's precautionary.
Yeah.
I obviously I was throwing out the information because it was in French, right? And not everyone's bilingual, and I can read it, I understand it, so I tried my best to word it in English for the Anglophone folks out there. But it's not concerning to me because I think I don't know if it's the same injury. I know it's a similar surgery to Shane Pinto, and with Pinto, he had the surgery in November of 2021, I believe, or late November or whatever. And towards the end of that last season, the Sens played throughout April. He was close or something, right? I think if I'm remembering correctly, but they held him out because it wasn't worth it to get a game or two in, right? So that's kind of how I see this. It's like he could be ready for training camp games. And honestly, this is I should state Mark Broussard, who writes with reports for Le Droit. He said it's him saying I doubt he plays exhibition games. It wasn't Norris confirming that. Norris did say he was ready for the regular season. He will be. He just can't. He isn't playing. He's not clear to play hockey right now. Should also mention neither is Thomas Chabot. There wasn't as much about that, but I don't know. I mean, he broke his hand, so it's been 3 months. That's kind of timeline. I guess just taking it easy. It could have been more with Chabot. We'll see about that, because that's, again, we're going to do bounce back candidates, and I'm sure one of us will mention Thomas Chabot. But with Norris, yeah, it's, we talk about the depth on the blue line. Look, obviously I don't want Thomas Chabot to be hurt. If he is in training camp, they'll be okay, just in terms of who they have to replace and everything like that. If Norris goes down, we're in trouble. I think that's fair to say too. So I think the team knows that, though. I think that's why they're being cautious. And why but there's two sides of it. It's, are you holding him out of preseason games because you're worried he's going to get hurt in them, or is it literally timeline and he can't play until October? It's a two sides of the same, two sides of the argument here. I don't think it's concerning. It's not great to hear, though. I think is what how I would classify it. And also, just quickly, for people saying, "Oh, how can you swing a golf club and not be ready for contact?" Wildly different things. Two wildly different things. Yeah, you need your shoulders and upper body for golf, but it's not like, because it's a controlled motion. I'm sure he can shoot pucks and everything now just fine. It's just about taking contact when you're not expecting it and hoping your shoulder is okay. So that's the biggest thing for Norris.
Yeah, for sure. And did he get hurt the second time though? Wasn't it on that face off? Like, wasn't that or was that the first time?
Yeah, first time was a face-off, and the second time it looked like he was reaching for a puck and just got bumped in the neutral zone or something. It was the second time was more concerning to me, because the face-off we've seen with Pinto. I haven't really seen it on other teams though. But
no, of course. With these two and Chabot as well, like they have that X factor potential, is the way we like to put it. Just, I mean, they're players who can really change the outcome of a game. And I think if you had Norris available, they would have been a playoff team last year. Like that to me, they were 6 points out if they had the player who entered the season as their first line center and was a 35 goal scorer the year prior. If they added that in, and look at those November games too, where they lost by 1 goal excluding empty nets for like 7 games in a row. If you had a 35 goal scorer in, and I think their power play was cold for a lot of that stretch too. Like, you've got Norris there. Are they really not going to at least earn 6 more points over the course of the season? I think they would have. Of course, everybody deals with injuries and it's just part of it. But for me, the thing with Norris is it can't be recurring. Like we can't see this, for half of his contract as he's out for every year. It's just they committed to him with a big deal, and that was in part the reason that, it turns out DeBrincat kind of wanted to leave anyways, but it was in part the reason that, they had to get rid of him was that, they didn't want to spend super crazy money on him, but that's also in part because they signed Norris to a massive deal. So you need Norris to be available because you're spending a lot of money on him, and unless he's going to sit on long-term injured reserve and you're going to take advantage of the ridiculous caps things that like Vegas has done over the last couple of years, you just need him to be available. You can't be losing a guy like this who's not just a 35 goal scorer potentially plus, but he's a power play guy. Like he's someone who scores a lot of power play goals. He ranked 4th in the league with 16 power play goals last year, right? Like that's nothing small. That's huge. And without DeBrincat being a shooter, you need a shooter, and Kubelik's can add to that too. But Norris is your premium guy, and he's also a center, and he's kind of a two-way center. So he does a lot of different things. If he's not available, the team is going to have to force Pinto into a greater role, rely more on prospects, maybe acquire some veteran guy. It's not a good blend, and I already feel the forward group is thin. If you lose Norris, they are beyond thin. Like now you need your goaltender to be elite, you need your defense to be elite, and you need your prospects to step up. So hopefully Norris stays healthy. Shabbat too. He hasn't had a ton of recurring problems, I don't think, with the same type of areas. The scary thing with Norris is that it's his shoulder, and we've seen what shoulders can do and how easily they can get re-injured. So I'm going to be holding my breath every time Norris goes into a corner next season, and every time he gets hit, because I hate having to do that too. I hate watching the game and you see Norris on the ice and you're like crossing your feet. You're like, please do not take a bad hit. Like, I think it was Sveshnikov rocked him the one time and it blew his shoulder right out, and it's like, oh God. So yeah, I'm going to be holding my breath, but again, nothing we can do with injuries but hope. That's really it. But just don't underrate the impact that Norris has on this Sens team, because he is a true game changer for them.
Another thing I want to mention too is, we talked about how Norris, he's back in Ottawa, and it was surprising, right? For me anyway, because he, like you said, he doesn't live here. He's from Michigan. And he was just here for, I think they're at Brady Tkachuk's wedding this weekend, but he came back up to Ottawa for this tournament. And, I think what pro athletes, they have access to the best technology, the best doctors, whatever, during the season, especially. Like that's why recoveries are so much faster usually than regular broken hands or whatever. But in the summer, I'm pretty sure they don't have the right to have access to the facilities until a certain time. Like, do you remember? I think the Leafs actually got fined for using their facilities with their prospects or something when they weren't supposed to. I might be pulling that out of nowhere, but I know there's regulations against using team facilities in the off season, right? You can get programs from your trainers, and they all get diet plans, whatever it is, from them. But for Norris, like the rehab stuff, you're not in Ottawa for it. You're not with the trainers and with the equipment and the athletic therapy. And again, these guys are millionaires. They're going to find their way back home regardless, but that could also contribute to the recovery stuff. And it might just be that they're saying he'll be ready for the regular season because maybe he has to get to camp, and then they can do the physical testing and figure out where he's at. Like there's a lot of mitigating factors. It was obviously a newsworthy thing to talk about. That's why we are talking about it right now. But I think at the end of the day, it's kind of nothing, because it's kind of as planned. And we are now going to transition here into bounce back candidates. And I'll just let you go first. We're gonna each do our top one first, and then just throw out some other names who could, because there's a lot. They had a decent year last year. The Sens did a lot of career seasons for a lot of players, but a lot of guys underwhelmingly had underwhelming seasons, I should say. So who is your first bounce back candidate, Brendan?
So we've had I think in my mind there are two obvious ones, and I won't say them both. I'll say one of them, and then I've got some kind of underrated ones that I could give a little dark horse after, because there's a few guys that maybe people aren't thinking about quite as much. I'm gonna let you talk about your X factor there, but I personally, I'm gonna go with Matthew Joseph, and this is just to me, like, he didn't score a goal at 5v5, and that is really the overarching, like, the thing you look at when you think of his season, is that he scored literally 0 goals through 56 games at 5v5, 3 goals total, which is just, it's a little brutal for a guy that Ottawa signed to a 3-year deal 2.95 or 4-year deal, 2.95 million. After playing 11 games for him, he was acquired for Nick Paul, obviously at the 2021 deadline. So yeah, Joseph came in. He played a top line role with Kachuk and Norris, and they lit it up for 11 games. And he scored, I think, over a point per game. I think he scored 12 points through 11 games to end that season. Pierre Dorion committed to him, even though he had never been in a greater role in Tampa. It turned out to be kind of a mistake in the first year of that big deal, because I mean $3 million is no small thing in when you're a cap team, and Joseph basically was a fourth liner for them this past year. He only averaged 14 minutes a game, which in comparison, like, he had 1650 when he came over in that after the deadline. So 3 goals in 56 games compared to 4 goals in 11 games after he was acquired. It's just things didn't go right for him, but he also had like 5 goals, expected goals, and he ended up scoring 0 at 5v5. To me, it's just kind of a luck thing, and we talked about it. He was still a very important player on the penalty kill, massive penalty killer. He averaged a lot of minutes there. He was very good defensively. He was one of the 4 players who got a plus goal differential at 5v5 with Giroux, Broussard, and Zub. So again, like, he wasn't a liability on the ice. He did some good things. He was playing primarily with probably like Gambrell and Patrick Brown and these guys, like Ottawa's revolving door of bottom 6 replaceable veterans. He was playing with a lot of them, didn't get much opportunity up higher in the lineup as we had seen after the deadline. He also dealt with injuries, right? He only played the 56 games, but that was largely due to injury. Kind of like Zub too, where he just missed inconvenient times. Like, he'd get into a bit of a rhythm and then he'd get hurt, and that kind of just happened throughout the year. So Joseph, I think, is someone who's going to come back. I'd be shocked if he doesn't score more than 0 goals at 5v5 for one. But if you add that into his penalty killing, to his defensive play, and then maybe he, because DeBrincat's gone, there is more of a role up the lineup now available. And if any injuries happen, I think he's a good candidate to step up into a greater role. So I think he's someone who certainly is going to bounce back. And I would almost say, like, I'm very confident in that, because I don't think he could get a lot worse based on the production alone anyways. And so, yeah, I think he is my number 1, but there's a couple more guys here that I'm excited to talk about as well.
Yeah, no, I think Joseph's a great pick. We've talked about it before too, right? That he's I love saying X factor, but he really is, because he's a middle 6 guy. He can play up and down the lineup. He's proven it. And even last year, I think he had little short stints with DeBrincat, and it went well, production wise. So yeah, bounces could go a long way for him. You just got to find consistency, obviously, like a lot of these guys that we're going to talk about. But it's crazy to me how many people have written him off already, and it's probably just as it's not a bad contract if he produces at a middle 6 rate. It's actually probably a great contract at that point, but it's the fact that they're a cap team now. It's a big number, and he's honestly the only contract on the team that you can look at right now and genuinely say it's a bad deal, because everyone's pretty fairly paid, and a lot of people are underpaid. So, okay, I'm going to go to another guy here. I'm not talking about Thomas Chabot yet. I'm going to go with Drake Batherson. I think Batherson is kind of fascinating to me, right? Because I'm looking at his last 2 seasons here. Obviously, the COVID shortened 2021 year, that was pretty good for Kachuk, Norris, and Batherson across the board. They all had about 17 goals, I think. The year after that, before his injury, the high ankle sprain, Batherson was the best player on this team. He was the all-star. He was their top point getter. And he ended up coming back that year, still had 44 points in 46 games. Like, he had a great year, and it was the first year of his 6-year, $4.9 million deal. Again, I still think that's a great contract. And this season was so up and down for him, right? It was actually, I wouldn't even say up and down. It just felt underwhelming. And a lot of it was that 5-on-5 play. DeBrincat, Pinto, and Batherson, that line was just not good enough. They were not good enough. I don't know if you can attribute it to Pinto, because technically Pinto actually had a good year. 20 goals as a rookie in the second line center role, not bad. They just didn't work together. So Batherson, to me, is a key bounce back candidate, because he'll be playing with Norris again, and those two have great chemistry together. The thing with Batherson, though, is defensively he needs to be better. And it's not, obviously the plus minus is a big, it stands out, whatever. But yeah, wingers get caught out there a lot. Wingers always have worse plus minus than centermen, because they're, they get caught and it's bad changes, whatever. But just defensively, I think his defensive metrics on analytics are not great. There's a lot of cheating going on sometimes, and it's stuff like that that I want to see improvement on, and that'll contribute to 5-on-5 success, I think, right? So I'm locking in with Drake Batherson as my key bounce back candidate, because if he does, that's again another, I'm not going to say X factor. It's another huge piece you can have on that second line that is a top line player, because 2 years ago he was your best player. He was better than Brady, he was better than Josh, and he was better than Tim. And that's not really debatable. Then he got hurt and stuff happened. So he's got a fully healthy summer this year. He's coming into this training camp with probably playing with the teammate that he's got the best chemistry with in Ottawa, and Josh Norris. And I think that'll do wonders for him. I think it really will. So I'm on the Drake Batherson train here to have a bounce back year, because if he can, man, I mean, look, also he was great on the power play this year. I think he led them in power play goals. That's, you can't scoff at that. He was a big reason why that power play was so successful. But that being said, 5-on-5 play has to improve for the team, and that he's a big part of it. You can go get guys like Tatar or Tarasenko to do that, but your in-house guys who you've committed money to, like Drake Batherson, need to turn it around at 5-on-5.
Yeah, and I think the thing with Batherson is the injury has to be mentioned, because he himself, like, he actually came out and said at one point that the injury was still nagging him like all year. He said it was hard to get consistency or be confident because he could still feel the nagging injury, and you can just imagine how, like, obviously it was, was it a high ankle sprain? Is that what he? Yeah, so it was his ankle. So he could still feel that, and obviously he was still saying he was getting back in the groove of skating and whatnot throughout the year. The defensive buy-in is a big thing for him, because he was a 62-point scorer, and yeah, he had, like, I think he had 48 points in 47 games or something before getting hurt there that other year. He was on pace for like a point per game season, and not even just that, like, it wasn't just production, but he looked very good. Like, before he got hurt, he looked like he was all over the puck. He was driving into the corners, he was winning puck battles, he was driving play. Like, that's how I described him. I remember when watching him against Toronto in that one of the first games of that season, I was like, wow, he looks like a real play driver this year. Like, he is here to stay. And he was. And then he got hurt. And this year, just, you didn't get that same vibe from him. You didn't get the same kind of gritty going into the corners, able to actually drive play with the puck and stuff. I didn't feel that. Like, it just seemed like he was kind of a step behind a lot of the time. But as he said himself, like, he could feel his ankle, right? He wasn't confident on it. So, yeah, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah. He went on I can't remember the name of the podcast, but it's from Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on the name, but anyway, he mentioned too on that one, which I liked, that he wants to focus this year on just hitting the net, because he said that he was trying to pick corners a lot, and he said if you look at all the best goal scorers in the league, they just shoot it and make the goalie make a save, and that made me look at his shooting percentage over his career. So he played 20 games in the 2019 season, 23 games the following year, which was COVID. Then his first full year was 2021. Then the injury year, and then last season, right? So again, though, he did play 82 games. So other than his injury, pretty healthy player, right? In the last few seasons, like, he played a full year in 2021, high ankle sprain, and then a full year this year. So that's valuable too. He's durable unless it's a freak injury like that. The shooting percentage is what I want to highlight here, though. So in the 2018-2019, so he played 20 games as a rookie, just getting called up here and there on a very bad Ottawa Senators team. He had 3 goals in 20 games. He had a 16.6 shooting percentage, so pretty high. The next season, 2020, he played 23 games, also had 3 goals and a 9.4 shooting percentage. So he shot the puck a bit more. The following year, this is the first full season, the 56 game Canadian division season. He had a 15.3 shooting percentage. The following year in 46 games had a 15.5 shooting percentage. And then this year he had an 8.8. So he clearly didn't have a very good shooting percentage this year. It was the lowest of his career. And I think on trend, we talk about DeBrincat all the time about how it's going to come back to the median, whatever. By average, his career average is 11.9, so just under 12. You got to expect that to go back up. And he still, this year, had 22 goals. So, and again, though, it's a guy who is dubbed as a playmaker, but he still he has that goal scoring touch. So I think that's a huge factor too that you got to think about, right? With when we're talking about replacing goal scoring and whatever it is, I think he's a good candidate to I don't want to say bounce back, but to plot more. Like he could score 30 goals. I wouldn't be surprised if Batherson hits 30 goals this season, right? They've got a lot of 30 goal candidates on this team, and he's certainly one of them. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how he does in training camp, because I know last year was, how he's doing with the injury, whatever. And again, also I should mention again, once the Hockey Canada stuff comes out, we can discuss that at length. We don't want to speculate, don't want to accuse, whatever. It's been so long. I think we all just want information, but I think it's also fair to read between the lines. Formanton wasn't offered a contract. They had no issue bringing Batherson back. I'm confident. I know I've said that there's issues with this management team and the franchise, but I'm confident they wouldn't be trotting him out there in stuff all season long if they weren't okay with everything. So that's just my hunch, but I could be wrong. And in that case, obviously I will retract everything I said, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But still, regardless, as is right now, he is my bounce back candidate for the 2024 season.
Yeah, and I was going to say him next too, because like we said, the injury was just such a huge thing, because he himself, like I said, he came out and actually spoke about how it was still bothering him. So, yeah, we can move off of Batherson, but I think he is a very good pick, and someone who, if he can produce 70 plus points and score, 25, 30 goals, that's massive. And he's an ultra skilled guy, right? Like, if you watch him play, I just hope he buys in defensively. And I think he recognized that too. He spoke on that podcast or somewhere. He spoke about being a minus 35 and obviously not a good defensive year. So he said he wants to get back to that. And I think, again, that comes with a nice summer of healing as well, and feeling strong on your ankles. So hopefully he buys in and is able to kind of finish a little more too. But I'll start with my next one, and I've got one more after this, which we can quickly hit on, but I'm going to go with Thomas Chabot just because I think he has to be spoken about. We have spoken about him quite a lot, so we can fly through it a bit here, but Chabot, the biggest thing, and I've been huge on this, is the ice time. And I think bringing in, of course, his partner too. Like, if he plays with Jacob Chychrun, he's going from largely using Nikita Zaitsev to going to Jacob Chychrun. It's night and day. That's massive that he can rely on his partner. And I think just those two being together, he's going to produce a stupid amount of points. Both of them will. Chabot specifically, though, I did not think he was dynamic this year. I thought he was slow. I thought he was making mistakes. He wasn't willing to carry the puck. He wasn't like walking the blue line as well. He wasn't able to make things happen in the offensive zone. And if you go back to his days in the QMJHL, that's what he was drafted for. He was picked in the first round because of his offensive ability, his ability to drive play, to move the puck, to skate it up the ice, and to be a possession player. And I just thought he looked fatigued this year. The mistakes were the big thing. That's not his game. Like, he shouldn't be someone who's afraid to carry the puck up or is making unforced errors in the defensive zone with breakout passes. Like, Chabot is someone you need to rely on. And the problem, I think, is they've relied on him too much. You can't play him 26 minutes a night like they have for 4 years in a row. Like, it's ridiculous. So I actually just looked, and over the last 15 games, and I think he was hurt here for the last stretch there this year, but for the last 15 games he played, he only averaged 22 minutes a night, and he had 10 points, 3 goals and 10 points. And I think that's going to follow suit, where when he's playing 22 to 24 minutes a night, he's going to be a far more productive player. Like, it's less is more, right? It's he's playing less minutes, he's not on the ice as much, but that's actually a good thing, because you're getting 22 to 24 really good minutes out of him instead of 26 to 28 mediocre minutes out of him. So for me, Chabot is I'd probably put him as my number one, to be honest with you, just because I think he's going to be such a benefactor of having Jacob Chychrun, of having Sanderson another year developed. Like, that balanced top four is going to go a long way for a guy who has played with primarily Nikita Zaitsev and in 26, 27 minutes a night for the entirety of his career. So Chabot is high up there on my list of that, and I think he's the most impactful player too, where when he's on, like, he can really influence how, like, the outcome of a game. So love Thomas Chabot, and I hope that he can get back to that dynamic player that we saw over the first couple of years, because he's like a Norris level guy who this past year was probably not even a top 20, 30 defenseman. Like, that's kind of the point that I'm saying there. So I love Thomas Chabot. Get back to your state, and let's get a bounce back.
Yeah, and also it shouldn't be understated that he's the longest tenured player on this team, right? He was there when they tore it all down. He played games on that Guy Boucher 2018 team. He was partnered with Carlson for a couple of games, right? And when that is the case. I think it's easy to kind of take him for granted, I want to say, but last summer I remember talking about how big of a season this was for him because Sanderson's coming up, and it was underwhelming. I think he'd tell you that too, right? He struggled, and you're right. It was confidence. It was not carrying the puck. It was all of that. So I'm actually curious who your third one is because I can't really think of one. Is it going to be? Can I guess?
Yeah, well, you've still got to do one.
I know I don't really have one. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Like I actually can't. I was gonna say maybe Anton Forsberg.
That was
just
gonna be it,
consistency
yeah.
wise. Okay, yeah. Like consistency wise, I think
Yep.
Forsberg would be the next guy. Because other than that, I think everyone kind of, that top line kind of overachieved in a good way, right? Not to say that they're gonna fall back to earth or whatever, but they exceeded expectations for me. And then Jake Sanderson exceeded expectations. Like it was all like, I mean, when you think about it like that, it's only a few guys who really need to have better years, but they need to have better years with the thought that maybe Brady Tkachuk doesn't have a great season. That could happen, right? So everyone's got to pull their own weight here. So, Forsberg, I mean, he's just got to have a really good camp, right? He's got to, I think the Sens have talked about how he struggles in the first half in his career, just in general. And I think Dorion mentioned they want to get him to Ottawa earlier or whatever than he usually does. And, make sure he's dialed in early on to have a good competition with Korpisalo, because this isn't Cam Talbot. This is a different beast. Hopefully, I may be hoping there, but yeah, it's going to be big for Forsberg because they need both guys on. They need both guys to be able to play 40 games if need be. And if one goes down, the other one has to be able to step up and kind of take the reins.
Well, the thing about Forsberg that I was kind of saying, so it is consistency, but the tough part is if you remember back to the start of this year, Cam Talbot got hurt and wasn't available for the first, I don't know how many games, but Forsberg was basically forced into a starting role where he had to play every night because they needed to get off to a good start, and they weren't confident in the options behind him. I think they went out and they got Hellberg, who played like one game and then got claimed. So Talbot being out though forced Forsberg to just step in every night. He was actually, and I'm just looking at the game logs, and he went 3-2 to start, lost his first 2 games, and then they won 3. But then they lost 5 in a row with Forsberg in net. And I remember thinking, and I'd have to go back, but I think like his confidence was broke. Like it seems like just because Talbot wasn't there to back him up, he basically had to keep going back in even after a bad night, which for a goaltender, like their confidence can very easily waver. Like it just seemed to break him down and kind of put him into a rough spot. And then obviously he dealt with the injuries. So I think that he's a guy who, if he's healthy this year, is going to really benefit from having Korpisalo like Shabbat with Chychrun. It's having more of a balance, having more structure, not being the guy all the time. That's the big thing with Shabbat too, is being the guy. Forsberg doesn't have to be that. Korpisalo, it doesn't even have to be that either. They can rely on each other, right? Like you don't need just one guy. You've got a good tandem here, and they need to bank on that. Even though I think Korpisalo should be more of the 1A who's playing more games. I think that they need to rely on their tandem and not be afraid to use Forsberg too, because I've said it, last year I feel that Forsberg was the second best goalie among non-playoff teams, which Sorokin was the other one. But he produced ridiculously good numbers, Forsberg, and he has proven to be, he has the potential. So it's just about staying consistent, not having to be the guy, because I think ideally he is a 1B level goaltender who he's kind of backing up a better, like Korpisalo. It's a nice tandem on paper. That's what I can say. But Forsberg's there. One other bounce back candidate, and people won't agree with me, but Travis Hamonic. And that's not because he was bad this year, I don't want to say, but like I feel like he's just another guy who's going to thrive in a lesser role. This less is more thing is really resonating with me today. Like I think Hamonic, he was playing in this top 4 role, averaging, significant minutes alongside Jake Sanderson. And he had to kind of be this guy who's elevating himself at 32, 33 years old. Now I think he can settle into a 6/7 role, and he can actually, find comfort in playing less minutes and just focusing on, he doesn't have to be as dynamic, I guess is the word, but he can more focus on just defensive play. He can be responsible. Doesn't have to be as versatile. Just focus on being smart with the puck, hitting, physical, like being that big-bodied bottom pairing defenseman, or as number 7 too, kind of subs in. And I think that's gonna go a long way for him. So those are my bounce back guys. I don't think there's anybody else on the team who really needs to bounce back aside from that. But yeah, I think that's a good list, and those are all guys to watch who I feel could legitimately bounce back next year.
Yeah, I think that's everyone. I think Hamonic's good part. Yeah, he can bounce back in the sense that he can kind of win everyone over that doesn't like him, let's say. by playing the role perfectly. And obviously deployment is a big part of that. So we'll see how injuries happen, whatever. But yeah, I'm excited for the season, man. I'm just ready for August to come and go in terms of hockey. I mean, it's obviously summer and it's not, you don't want to wish it away, but I think that's going to do it. We're close to an hour again. This is our new normal is going in an hour. So that's going to do it for episode 26 of the Everyday Sens podcast. So thank you everyone for joining, and please like, subscribe to the YouTube page. We're on the road to 1,000. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Just trying to hit that by training camp mid-September if we can. Stay tuned for signings and trades and everything. We will break them down right here. And subscribe to everydaysens.com to get in-depth analysis on the team every day, which is everydaysens.com. So thank you for joining, and we'll see you all next time.